All right, 2.5. You're going to have to excuse my voice today. We had a game last night, so my voice is kind of gone. So just deal with it, and hopefully it gets better the more I talk. So the ready is actually relatively simple, so I'm not going to do a whole lot with the ready. In the ready, you are given the exponential graph and a logarithmic graph. So here's my exponential, and here's my logarithmic graph. You just need to make a list of their characteristics. So don't forget, characteristics include increasing or decreasing. You should identify any asymptotes they have, any intercepts they have. These are both continuous, so you don't need to talk about that. You should talk about domain and range. You should go through and list that for each graph. Don't forget, domain is your X and range is your Y. That should be enough. The reason you're asked to list their characteristics is because below these graphs, you are asked to answer some true or false questions. And it'll be easier if you have the characteristics already listed. So that's pretty much it for your characteristics. If you could think of others, you're welcome to put in any others there. Don't force them though. For example, max and min, these do not have max and min. There are no peaks and valleys here, so don't force that one. So now once you have your list, you're going to go through and answer true or false, and then be careful here, for each false statement, you have to make it true. For example, number 4, both graphs have vertical asymptotes. That is false. A log graph has a vertical asymptote. Log has a VAT, I use that short for vertical asymptote, at x equals 0. But the exponential graph does not have a vertical asymptote. Vertical asymptotes run up and down. The exponential actually has a horizontal asymptote. So it has a horizontal on the x-axis. So I'm actually going to say it has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. So don't do too much, but do fix the false statements. Don't just put true or false, please. I won't give you credit for that. Please make sure you fix them. All right, that takes care of the ready. Now for the set. I really like this set. It's getting you using the properties that we've been going over. So you might want to use your foldable for these ones. And we are actually going to use the power property here. So don't forget the power property. If I have a log and I have something with the base and the same value, my answer will always be whatever the exponent is. So let's say my exponent is an 8. This means my answer is going to equal 8 because I can ignore the logs. They will cancel. So don't forget also when you're working through these that if I have a log of, let's say I have a log of 30, I can put a 10 for my base. So when your base is missing, don't forget you could put a 10. Not could, you should. You won't be able to do 9 through 12 if you don't put the base as 10. All right. Then when we get to 17 through 20, it says solve the equations by inserting log on both sides. You will need a calculator. Let me grab mine. Okay, so I love this property. Normally, what we would want to do is look and see if I can rewrite the 10 and the 4.305 with the same base. But given that I have a 10 and there's not a 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, I cannot rewrite these. So there's a little trick with logs. And I'm going to do an example off to the side. Actually, I'll go ahead and do number 17 for you guys. So I have 10 to the n equals 4.305. So when it says that I can log both sides, I literally just put a log to both sides. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Now, the power property, there are two parts to the power property. So the first part is what we used in the top part of these questions in the set. The second part of the power property, which is on the bottom part of your foldable for the power property, is I can take my exponent, my power, and I can move it to the front. So now I have n times the log of 10 equals a log of 4.305. So it's really nice once you get the hang of the power property, you guys. You log both sides, your exponent moves to the front. Now I can solve for n. My last step is to divide by log 10. And since my log does not have a base, now I know they told us to use log base m, but you don't need to. Just use log, because now I can use my calculator. Here it's going to cancel. So n will equal in my calculator. I am going to plug in log 4. Now, if you guys are using my calculators, please make sure you're using parentheses. If you're at home doing this on your phone, you should not need parentheses. You should just be able to do log of 4.305, hit divide, log 10. It should not be so bad. A nice little shortcut to this is, since my base on the right side, or the denominator, is a 10, that would cancel and leave me with 1. So then you could just do log of 4.305 and you don't need to do the division. But it's good practice, because not always will this value here with the log be a 10. So I just think it's good practice to just go ahead and do the whole division in your calculator. And then once you hit equals, so practice this, please. Take a moment, get your phone out, turn it sideways, or get a calculator if you haven't already grabbed one, and find the log button and 4.305. And then I like to hit equals after I do the first log, and then divide by log 10. And my answer, n, will end up equaling, I'll put my answer over here, n equals 63397, but it says to round your answer to, it doesn't say, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Don't just cut it off to 0.63. The more decimals you have, the more accurate your answer is going to be. So that's how you're going to go through and do all of those 4. Now you only have 3 left. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, you know where to find me. And then the last part, the go. Oh, dang, you guys only have 2 questions. How easy is that? You have a nice equation here, and you're probably looking at this. That doesn't seem so nice, but it is once you start plugging things in and using your calculator. So P is the dollars deposited. So I'm going to make a list. You might want to write this down. P is your dollars deposited. That's your principal, what you're starting with. The rate is R, so interest rate is R. N is how many times a year, number of times per year. And T is how many years. So I'm going to make a list of this. P is my start. R is my percentage rate, but I want this in a decimal. And then N is the number of times per year that your interest is being applied. And then T is the years. So make sure you guys are identifying for each one of these. You have to do it 4 different times. You're going to use this equation a total of 8 times. I will do a couple for you right now. You will need your calculator for this. Make sure you identify your start. So for 21, how much money will there be in an account at the end of 10 years if $3,000 is deposited at 6%? So let's identify what those 3 things are. The 10 years is my time. The 3,000 is my principal. Now 6% is 0.06, and that's my rate. So just in case I'm going to erase this, so hopefully you guys already wrote that down, or guess what? You can pause, you can rewind, you can write it again. When I have a percentage, my decimal is at the end of the number. When I want to go to a decimal, I have to move it twice and then put a 0. So that's where I get the 0.06 from, in case some of you guys forgot that. Now, all I have to do is identify N. So before I go through and start using that formula, I need to figure out what N is for each of these. So for annually is 1 time a year, so N is 1. Semi-annually is 2 times a year, so N will be 2. Quarterly is 4 times a year, so N will be 5. And in D, they're telling you daily, use 365 for N. So you're going to plug in to your equation. I'll go ahead and do the daily for you guys since it's the largest number, and then you guys can go through and you should be able to figure out the rest. So A equals, you will have to do these on another piece of paper. I want to see your work. If I don't see you guys plugging into this equation, I am not going to give you credit for this homework. Please make sure you're showing how you plugged in. So A equals, P is first, so 3,000. Then I put a parentheses, 1 plus. So I'm following this. R is 0.06 divided by N, which is 365. Then it's times N, 365, times T, which is the 10 years. Don't overdo the work on these. This is your equation for all 4 of these. The only thing that is going to change is the 365. So make sure that you're not starting over. You're just changing the 365. Should be very easy to write your equations. Now, once I get to this point, once I have this equation, I am going to start simplifying using my calculator. So this is where the work is going to come in. And those of you who are very, very good at using your calculator, you are going to be able to take this entire thing, plug it into your calculator in one swoop and hit equals, and you're going to get your answer. Those of you who are not so good at using your calculator, I'm going to help you with that right now. If this does not make sense to you, then I strongly suggest that you come in and you get some help with the calculator, because this is something that if you don't know how to do, you're going to miss some questions on a test, on a final, on the Smarter Balance test. We need to be able to use our calculator. The first thing I'm going to multiply is the 365 times 10, and all I have to do is just add a 0 to that. So that's going to be easy. I don't even need my calculator for that. I'm going to show you this in steps. So here's my work for the calculator. I am going to start with the fraction. So 0.06 divided by 365. And I get this crazy decimal. And it's e to the negative 4, which means it's in scientific notation. So in my calculator, actually let me show this. This is how I'm plugging into my calculator. 0.06 divided by 365, and I hit equals. That's my first step. Now, the second step in my calculator, I leave that answer. You should have 1.64 e to the negative 4. So scientific notation. Don't write this down. You don't need to. Now, I am adding 1. So I'm doing the parentheses first. I add 1. So all I have to hit is plus 1. So make sure you're practicing this. When I hit plus, answer pops up 1. So now, once I hit equals, I get 1.000164 and some other decimals. Leave that in your calculator. Then, after parentheses comes your exponent. So my third step in my calculator is caret. So I hit caret. Then it's 3650. So that's why I needed this. Okay, so 365 times 10 is 3,650. So now that's in my calculator, and I hit equals. And I get 1.11275 and then some more decimals. Keep it in your calculator. Do not clear it. Your answer will change if you are cutting off your decimals, and I'm not going to be happy with that. Now, once I have the inside of my parentheses and my exponent done, my final step is to just hit times 3,000. So times, my decimal's already in there, 3,000. And after 365 days of the interest being compounded, there will be $3,338.27. Here you round because we're dealing with money, and money only goes to 2 decimal places. So you do need to round there. All right. That's how you're going to go through, and you're going to do the go. You have 7 more of these to do. Don't be lazy. If I do not see the equations that you have plugged into, you will not get credit for this homework. Please make sure you do your work, please. All right, if you have questions, come and find me in my classroom, morning, lunch, and I will let you know when I'm available after practice for you guys to get any help. All right, see you later.